Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, download our free app to your smartphone, and stream all of our live local programming, including the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And without further ado, I want to bring back a cat who we've been connecting the last couple of weeks. It's been very enlightening for me, and serendipity reigns supreme because I didn't necessarily know exactly what angle to take with my guest, but he was able to guide me in that direction very subtly last week. So let's hit David Lindley. Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks so much.
You know, I want to talk to you a little bit about just in your mind. Is there longevity in music for an artist anymore in the rock and roll vein? In the sense that, I want you to riff on that. Is there longevity anymore?
Yeah, still is.
How is it different than, I mean, when I look at you guys, you specifically, just taking you start your career, you have a label, they believe in you, they dig you, and then you move on, you make collaborations with people, you make records, your name's on the back, you're an accompanist, you become a studio shark, studio scene's thriving. Eventually we just open with, you and El Rayo X. It continues on and on and on, but if you can unpack why longevity for a younger cat coming out today is still in music that doesn't have a reputation, please explain.
It depends on how hard you're driven, how hard you drive yourself, and how much you want to get your music out and overcome obstacles, lots of obstacles, and it's different now than it was, way different, because you don't have the record company thing anymore. You don't have that, but there's a lot of other things. It's kind of a self-restructuring organism. As certain parts of it disappear, others appear. You can get your stuff out on YouTube. You can, people, hear what you're doing. They go, oh, like that. Let's do that, and then you do make a CD, and then you do some stuff on downloading, or you do live streaming concerts, or there's all kinds of stuff. The competition now is way huger. It's like 100-fold now, because everybody has access to all that.
Right.
And it's not the record company presents, that kind of thing. That was a pretty limited thing, because not everybody got record contracts, and then there was the underground stuff that went on in spite of all the record company control of everything, and then like the punk movement and the grunge. And,
can you talk? This is where exactly. Can you? Where did punk emanate from? Was it?
Oh man!
I mean, as best you can, because there is this sort of running intersection between, you use the word obstacles, and this relentless self-promotion. None of this you had to worry about. You just worried about creating music.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did punk?
That's really accurate. Yeah.
Was punk a reaction to sort of the? I don't know. It's just not my bag. Was it a reaction to the death of rock and roll? I just would like you to talk about that.
It was is part of a cyclical thing. Teeter-totter pendulum kind of thing. You had people neatly packaged and promoted, and managers and that whole world, and getting on TV, getting on MTV, and doing all this stuff, the big machine. The punk movement went so far as to we're not going to learn to play too well, you know. Fuck you guys. We're not going to learn to play that well, and we got something to say. Here it is. You know, you better listen. And you had this, and it was another scene too, because it was, you know, L.A. was just insanity, you know, and it was, you know, the Dead Kennedys and Black Flag and all these places where people went, and it was an alternative to you know, the other thing, to what they viewed as corporate rock, and even though it wasn't wholehearted participation in the corporate entity, you know, a lot of my friends they just wrote songs. They just prolific songwriting stuff, and let's play someplace and let's go out and do all this stuff. That's what they did, and that's what I did too. I did everything, you know. I kind of you know, was part of that whole thing, and it was very well timed because I was right in the middle of it. And all these opportunities where you turn around and something's happening that you can do if you want to. If you can do that kind of thing, you know, studio stuff. You know, some things I couldn't do because I couldn't sight read for slide guitar and you know, that kind of stuff. So, and that's what everybody had me playing, or mandolin or whatever it was. You know, there's certain things I could do, and I could, okay, that's the studio thing. Okay, I'm going to make a record and see if, you know, Jackson got me a deal, you know, with Electric Asylum and produced the first album, and you know, did that. Okay, there's that. There's the recording thing, and now you've got this Blue album, which really turned out well. And then there's the live thing. I can go play live with El Rayo X. You know, I remember when it first started off, it was that we did stuff differently. We did reggae, and we did, you know, semi-norteño music, and this other stuff. You know, it had kind of Middle Eastern roots and blues stuff. All these different things. You know, R&B tunes done kind of ska, reggae style, and, you know, in the reggae tradition of taking, you know, stuff off the American radio and then reggaifying it, you know. It was a big thing. So I was part of when I lived in England for those 3 years, I saw that happen. I saw tunes, you know, country western tunes and old rock and roll tunes taken by reggae bands and have a version of it, you know. And ska, the big ska skinhead thing, was going full blast in England at the time. So I took all those influences, came back, and after I've played with Terry Reid, and I came back and you know, thinking about that, writing stuff, and then I played with Jackson, and that was a whole other thing too, and that was so.
Well, let me just say, you know, because you're dropping serious knowledge. I just want to go back to this. There was an anti-corporate backlash to the rock music.
Yes.
Explain, because that corporate, I could be wrong, but a lot of classic bands today would, I mean, the ones we think of, Bruce Springsteen or The Doors or Joni Mitchell, a lot of them did not have a hit record right off the bat. It took them millions of dollars for the record company to invest in these artists, and they cultivated them. Jackson, I don't know when and maybe the same way, but I got the impression that the bean counters were like, well, I don't necessarily understand what these cats are doing, but they're making us money, so we're just going to stay out of their way. But then by this corporate rock, what do you mean by that? And then, because what you were talking about with the punk movement was, we're not really that technically great, but we're playing with heart. I mean, were they taking the humanity out of the music to make a buck? What does that mean?
No, it was a structure. that you became part of. It wasn't.
Can you
It
explain
was,
the structure, how you got into
yeah,
it? And
you could you would if a record company was interested in you, they would sign you, and you'd become part of their roster of artists, and you would release albums on their label, and then you would have a manager who would coordinate all the stuff, and the manager and the record company would coordinate promotional things, and you know, the artist and the manager would take advantage of everything that the record company could do for them. And then you'd go out and you play these gigs, and you get a video, you make a video, and in those days that was a big thing too, and they had me doing that. So I said, make a video, I better be good.
I mean, okay, but this is interesting because MTV didn't really hit the scene till the early '80s. I'm sort of just in the '70s where it's like
Okay.
You know what I'm getting at is like this. When did, because isn't that really when punk started? Was the late '70s?
You know, I'm not really sure.
I just remember Garcia talking. I remember Garcia being interviewed in the late '70s, and I forget the band he was talking about.
Yeah.
But he said, you know, he's like, I don't necessarily like the music, but I love their heart. You know, it was authentic.
Yeah.
So before the video, before MTV, did you? Where was the structure? How did the structure entangle or inhibit true artistry, if at all?
It would help it too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it would take certain things out of the picture that you didn't have to worry about anymore. You know,
Like what? What was the? Yeah, that's
self-promotion. Yeah, now they handle that. You know, you didn't have to go around and play all these open mic things, and with the bands. So it played a bunch of those things. You didn't have to go do that because everything would be organized, and you had a booking agent. So you had your manager, the booking agent, and the record company, and they all worked together. And one of the reasons that particular structure worked is that you had time to write songs and practice and get better, and and all that other stuff was working at the same time. So you had it was an organism, that worked on all that. And the punk movement came along, it was kind of fuck that, we're going to play music. It'll be good. And then these guys started getting their own record companies, which was and for a long time it was a production company. Okay, you signed to a production company, and the production company signs to the record company because the record companies were afraid of these guys. So I can remember, what happened to, this is an independent record company. Oh well, it's not actually. It's a production company that has a label or has a name, and it's like Bluefish Records or whatever it is. You get this, distributed by Warner Brothers or distributed by Columbia, Sony, or A&M or whatever it is, and it became this other thing, which then became more powerful, and then people started picking up on it because they liked it. It's very tribal stuff. It's us and them kind of thing. Oh, we don't play that stuff. That's too syrupy. You don't want to sing. You don't want to sing songs about that stuff. There's more important things than that. And it's been going on for a long time, ever since recorded music. There's been movements, and there's been tribes, and there's been country western music as opposed to pop music, as opposed to rock and roll. Oh no, rock and roll. Oh no, that's black people's music, and white people are playing it. Oh no, what do we do about this? And it's getting really popular. So you had all this stuff going on all the way from the beginning. and that the transitions from one tribe's music to another tribe's music. Who is popular now? Which tribe is popular? You know, what is the most interesting stuff? What's the most musical stuff? People want to, you know, they want to feel something. You know, they want to, you know, jump up and down. They want to dance. They want to do whatever they want. Disco.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where did that come from? You know, there it is. Well, it's a whole scene.
Well, that, I mean, to me, it was like, that's the beginning to me of when a musician, all of a sudden it was their gift to the world as opposed to an actual profession, because club owners said, well, instead of hiring a quartet, or a quintet, we'll just bring in someone to spin records, or, you know, play Gloria Gaynor all night. And so,
that's right.
You know, it's like, but I mean, can you talk about a time with Jackson or Cooter or when you didn't have the obstacles of self-promotion and you were able to specifically work out something in the studio that took a while and it turned into something really special because it was authentic?
Yeah. It depends on who it was.
It could take any example, but I'm talking before your solo career, when things had changed, but really before, when you guys had, I mean, I just interviewed Dave Bargeron from Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He literally said that RCA would set up, you know, in New York, this is on the East Coast, but they'd set up the recording studio. There'd be couches and tables and, you know, probably some nice fresh powder. And I'm just saying, you camp out there.
Al Pacino was invited.
No, I mean, yeah, the whole nine yard. You know, it was like, you know, it was the finest Persian. You know, and it's like, or it was the finest whatever. I'm sorry, Cuban. What, you know, it's like the point is that you camped out there for a month, and and so can you talk about how you had nothing to worry about other than not about technical facility, but being able to touch hearts. Is there something you can? Is there an example of that?
There is. You get into a certain frame of mind, which is the frame of mind that covers all of that. You know, I want something that I like, something that's really musical, something that people would like too, and and the degrees of each one of those ingredients would change every once in a while. Let's see. Well, I should make this a little bit more up tempo, because then it'll work in with the other tunes, and we got too many medium tempo songs and stuff like that, and then you're working on an overall result, you know. So, and you could do that because there's a lot of times when record companies you could get a budget that was just endless, you know. And
endless.
Yeah,
and none of it was. I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, you know, Lindley's going to have to play the fiddle parts. He's going to have to go on the street and put up signs. He's going to have to go to radio. You didn't have to do any promotion, and yet you got these budgets to just make music.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And the record companies invested in you. You know, that was the era of huge budgets, and you know, Fleetwood Mac would go into the studio and they would, you know, use a whole lot of studio time, and a lot of people that I worked with, they would do things at different rates that depend on who it was and how you know, bad they wanted to hear the end result, or to hear a really great, perfect version of the concept of the song. You know, so we'd record it until it was good, till it did that. And it was always the songwriter was the person to say, let's go here, let's put this on here, and we'll do that. You know, especially when I was working with Jackson. Jackson just had everything, how he wanted it to sound, and then if you came up with something better, then that went on there. So, and it was really an advantage to be able to work with people like that. And Crosby and Nash went in the studio there. Graham, at think it was Graham's studio, Graham Nash's studio.
Mm-hmm.
So the budget and stuff, that part of it was kind of covered. I'm not absolutely sure what how all that worked out, but you played it until you got it.
Right. And fast forwarding to today, you talked so articulately about music still going on. It's a different color now, different colors, and then also, what's popular pop music commercial is, people are playing like a drum machine, and this is just the time that we're living in. But can you talk about, when you look at music, the trajectory of music, the fact that we're really in this period where, James Taylor, Jackson, Cooter, Dylan, these were authentic cats.
Absolutely.
I don't know. To me, what do you say about the longevity of rock and roll or music in general when all of a sudden, those guys were, first of all, the guys I just mentioned, they were all stars. Absolutely. Jackson, okay. They were stars. They were pop stars, okay?
Absolutely.
And they were authentic musicians. And now you have cats, like, take away the instrumentalists, you have pop stars who aren't even talented. It's that technology, you can fix it. How did I sound?
Yeah.
Terrible. Well, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. You're beautiful. You got 30 million Twitter followers. Let's do it.
Yeah.
What is that? Yeah. How? So I go back to the longevity thing. Can you just riff on that? Because that to me is, there was no. You could splice stuff. You listen to Blue Mitchell records, and Freddie Robinson takes the same exact solo twice in a row because they had a splice. Something got effed up. But the point is, it wasn't that somebody sucked, that they had no talent and they're being promoted as a star.
Yeah.
So just riff on that. How did we get to this point, and how really, how can you have longevity with lack of authenticity in the actual artists themselves?
It's hype and promotion and marketing and that's become it's become more important part of the mix now. And the advent of the pitch corrector for vocals, that was a huge thing.
Explain why.
It's because what happens is that you can sing a vocal that's not in tune, and you may not be a good singer, and it's really hard to get a vocal that goes all the way through that's in tune and is really good and all that. You put it through the box. For a while, it was called the share box because she used it a lot and really actually used it like an instrument and messed with the repeat and all that stuff, and she got some pretty interesting stuff out of it. But the basic purpose of the box was to make it so that you could get perfect vocals, or you could, you can take other instruments and tune those things up, and so that had a lot to do with it. So light bulbs went off in people's heads, producers' heads, record companies' heads, and they said, "Oh, we can do this. We'll get somebody who is has charisma of some sort, and we'll make it so that they sound really good, and they can do it with country music. 99.9% of all vocals are run through a vocal or a pitch corrector. There's all kinds of different models of that thing, so and they use it, and you can't tell the difference a lot of the time, so that had a big influence on it, and the rest of it is like corporate kind of organization, which is and people, they like it. They like the end result. They like what came out of it. They like the person is really interesting and has a good presence on stage, and they do that, and a lot of dancing, and there was an expression in the 70s was beware of those without instruments. Yeah, it was like.
And what did that mean?
Well, it was just like, can you play an instrument, or is it just, is this like, a facade, or, are you getting away with something, or, it has nothing to do with lead singers, but a lot of it was, like the boy bands, that didn't play.
Right.
Yeah, that was it.
And then in modern day, you get, rap artists like, Milli Vanilli, they're lip syncing the words.
There was that too.
That too. I mean, but it was this idea of the share box. When did she take flack for that were you under your kind of just like, what the heck is this? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is like, this is an instrumental example, but David Spinoza flubbed that solo on Right Place, Wrong Time, Dr. John, and Arif Mardin and those cats were like, nope, that's what we want. We're good. And, it was clearly a flub, and it's still there today, but it made the tune, and they liked that funky thing.
Yeah.
When you go back, I mean, Jackson Browne, you couldn't pitch correct his voice. I mean, he had an amazing voice, but it had to be done the right way. And I guess all I'm trying to say is, can you talk about any cats that you know right now, younger cats how they're dealing with the juggling act of self-promotion, relentless self-promotion, no budget, no record company, no touring circuit. And I mean, you can say that, how do you carve out an idea? Tell me some younger examples to tell me that rock and roll is the longevity of individuality in rock and roll is not dead, if you have any.
Wow. Well, I know I run into a lot of people who, like opening acts, and people when I play places, there's a lot of people who are kind of in that boat, and they're doing the self-promoting thing, putting it on YouTube, or not doing another way of promoting their stuff. One guy in particular is a bottleneck guitar player who is just amazing. So I did some gigs with him already, and
what's his name?
I'll remember in a minute.
Okay. I'm sorry. So what I mean, like, okay, so talk about him and how he's doing it and getting ahead.
There's, he's really tenacious, going after everything. And he's making his own CDs and sending them around. And it's working pretty well. I mean, he's going to get seen and heard, and I'm trying to get him on some Canadian festivals, blues festivals and stuff like that. He's just totally unique style, a great singer and a great bottleneck player. That there's nobody that he plays like. He kind of sounds like, Cooter in some senses. He's got the same kind of great vibrato bottleneck thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got this fabulous voice, so he's doing a lot of gigs wherever he can. So I'm trying to help him out a little bit.
No, I mean, I'd like you to talk about how seamless it was for Jackson, because here you are, you're doing what Jackson did for you and what people have done before that, where, Electra Asylum, and you're trying to lend a hand and say, let's get this cat on some blues festivals so he can be seen more. Can you just talk about, I mean, how seamless the transition was from being the studio shark and this guy who was, you were with Jackson and all these cats, and how easy it was for him to get you a record deal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no problem. They liked it anyway. Electra Asylum.
Just take even if
like
just take me through that entire like from when you with Jackson, and then how easy it, if it was easy, the steps that it took for you to actually get, because at that time, in the early or the late '70s, early, I mean, you still the listening mediums were LPs and analog cassette. You still had regional radio to a degree. So
Oh yeah.
Lindley, and we didn't have the internet or full interconnection. So Lindley was, your individuality came to life. But I just want to know how. I mean, today it's like, oh, Lindley, you know, he's a freak. He doesn't look a certain way. He doesn't he doesn't fit the corporate model.
Yeah, that's they kind of, for a while they didn't really know what to do with the kind of music I played, you know, except for Mercury Blues. They knew what that was all about. But
I mean, Jackson went to them and said, "Listen, what did he say? This guy's been with me forever. He's the..."
I'm not too sure. I knew all the record company people,
Mm-hmm.
the Electros Island people, because they had been working with Jackson. We see him at gigs and everybody, and really, really cool people. Bert Stein was wonderful. At that time, it was David Geffen, and I knew him through Jackson. He come to gigs and stuff. Really wonderful guy, and he would always take my phone calls. I'd have questions about doing what do I do? This is the first album. What do you think is what's the best approach to do? To this or that aspect of it. And he always had advice. He was very, very helpful.
That's amazing. He was he was Geffen Records. He was the president.
Oh yeah.
He was the president, and he was taking your call. But you knew him back from the. I mean, Geffen was total hipster.
Yeah.
He was out there back. But I mean, you had direct access to the president of the company.
Yeah, and then when it was Hale Milgram and Joe Smith and those guys, they liked what I did, and that really helped. And a lot of the people in the publicity department, they were enthusiastic, and they liked what I was doing and understood what I was doing. There was a couple of glitches where they weren't quite sure, what to call it, and I remember one friend of mine walked into the studio, and he just stood there for a minute, got everybody's attention, and said, "Reggae rock." And I said, "That's good. I like that." So he says, "Well, we try to figure out the best way to present stuff to the audience in general." And it was for a while it was a little bit difficult, but I was a working band, which was a huge thing. I mean, I would go out on the road all the time, and I was used to doing that because I went out on the road with Jackson all the time. So that was the way to do it. You get a road crew and a van, and a bobtail truck, and you do all kinds of. There was a bus for a while. We did, it depended on how long you're out for. So, and toured Europe. Went to Europe, played Germany, Austria, and Switzerland a lot. Played the UK, Scandinavian countries where I got, gold records and stuff, and toured all around. And the record company was behind me all the way.
Well, I mean, I just want to be clear. When you say behind you, they funded these tours.
Yeah. Well, we pretty much, we made money at these gigs, these festivals and gigs and all kinds of, venues, and they helped out somewhat, but mainly it was us, We rented the bus, we did all the, schlepping around, and we had a road crew and that we paid, and and it's just like, you know, a normal touring situation, with the record company being enthusiastic and helping out and doing, you know, radio interviews. And then I remember for one European tour, there was press day, and it was like, I don't know how many it was, like 14 journalists in a row, one after another. And I had the lady that set it all up would come in and point at her wristwatch.
Next one, yeah, right.
Yeah, she was really cool. She was great. So they were real helpful.
And then right, and then I've been waiting to ask you this question, and I know you still perform live, but going back to when you were just coming up, and you know, in the mid '60s, and the fact that you would get to, you know, see your idols and like Mingus and then banjo, but I just would like you to talk a little bit about how the music in our culture, the significance of music in our culture, has changed.
Well, it's changed on a lot of fronts. You know, the folk music now, they kind of think it's one thing in particular, you know, the Americana kind of stuff and folk music, sounding folk music, but the real serious folk music is hip-hop, gangster rap, all that.
Explain that. That is very important. That is very important. That doesn't even make sense to me. The real folk music. Why is that the real folk music?
It is because it comes from people that are making it up out of their heads. I mean, it's completely, totally different approach. Really relevant to life. You know, everybody's life where these guys live, and their songs like Woody Guthrie, same thing. It's the same intensity. It's with the same passion and you know, intent.
And it's coming out of their heads, right? It's not being.
Yeah, it is.
It's not being modulated by some efficiency person or saying, "Oh no, we need."
No.
Right. This is such. Keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Didn't attend any class for it. You know what I mean? They didn't go to, you know, a class to learn how to do this stuff. They made it up. It's like, you know, the flamencos or the, you know, folk musicians in Turkey who got a hold of an oud. So one guy gets a hold of an oud and he starts playing stuff on there, and he gets really, really good. And he doesn't study any of the classical stuff. He just plays it like a folk instrument, and he gets really good. So he develops this one style, you know. And then somebody over in Iran, they do the same thing with a tar, which is like a Persian banjo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, tar.
Yeah.
And all, you know, different stuff. And then down the road a little bit in Azerbaijan, they play a completely different style, and they have all this stuff in it. And what did they do? Oh, we just got together. And we play this stuff now, and it becomes a regional style. So you had this happening all over the U.S. You have regional, you know, this style, and, you know, we do something like, you know, Buzzy Down the Road. It's kind of like him, you know, but we put our own stuff in there, and everybody borrows, you know, things. Oh, there's a great fiddle player. Oh yeah, he lives over in Kentucky. You got to go over there. You got to look him up. You know, he's easy to find. Everybody knows where he is. You just go to, you know, Bear Branch. Just go to the post office in Bear Branch and ask where Nate is. You know, you do that. So people would oh, this is great stuff. Oh, you know, and two fiddle players that went along on the trip, they come back and they start playing like this guy, you know. And then you got records. You hear records, and you say, "Oh, good. Oh, that's what I did. I was a record, Tower Records. You know, I get records, Folkways records.
Oh.
These guys,
Ralph Rinsler, man.
Oh yeah,
rocking
Ralph,
that.
Oh yeah, he did all kinds. Recorded all kinds of people, and there was the the Lomax family. They did a whole bunch of stuff like that, and thanks to them, we were able to hear a lot of these people. And then Ed Pearl, who was the owner of the Ash Grove in Los Angeles, he would have people come in. He would make sure that these Mississippi sharecroppers had the transportation, had a place to stay, and he paid them really well to come to the Ash Grove and play for a week. So we all went there. We sit in the audience and we hear these guys play, and we go, "Oh, holy shit! Listen to this!" And it's all people of a certain age. Me and Cooter and the guitar player named Al Marion was always there. Sandy Mosley, all these people. David Cohen, who became a fabulous studio musician, he was there and he would play. And then we learned all this stuff and we had our version of it because we loved all that stuff. Bluegrass bands or blues string bands or whatever, jug band music. Oh boy, check this shit out. This is really funky and nasty good stuff. So let's do that. We have a jug band too. Besides the bluegrass band, we have the jug band. So everybody was doing that.
You had a jug band?
No. Well, kind of. It was just
because this would be because Garcia did, but also they had Mother McCree's. But I've interviewed everybody in the Queskin jug band. I'm like, Lindley might have had one.
Oh yeah.
Everyone.
Queskin was like the resident guru at the place called the Cat's Pajamas in Arcadia, where I played all the time. That's the first time I heard Jim Queskin.
It was the no shtick, right?
Yeah. He was getting together a jug band, and he was, looking around for people, and there were a lot of people in the L.A. area, and especially in that area, which is the eastern part of L.A. County. There are a lot of fantastic players there, So he was, There's a bunch of other. There's a guy named Mike McClellan who was a multi-instrumentalist who was a really big influence on me. I would go see him every time he played. He played the 12-string like Lead Belly, played the banjo like Ralph Stanley, and sang. Really unbelievably good multi-instrumentalist. And I go see these guys all the time. And so we would, and it was the folk process. That was it. You didn't go to school, you went to the club, and you absorbed it, you learned how to steal. Yeah.
Beg, borrow, and steal. 2 nickels or a dime to call me on the phone. No, so let me ask you about this idea of have we sold out? People do a lot of file sharing and downloading today. They don't support. Do people no longer support musicians with their pocketbooks?
They still do.
In what way?
I get people who come to these gigs, and they pay to see the show, and then they buy a CD afterwards. It's a kind of an ethical thing. In fact, I have people tell me that I know you don't like to be recorded, so I didn't bring my rig. So I actually talk to people that say that kind of thing, and then there's the stealth people who will do it anyway, and they get off on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do that, and then all of a sudden you have a live at Jam & Java,
right, with
Vienna, Virginia.
Some Sennheiser 421 mics, and they got that.
Well, but or else sometimes the venue records stuff
I dig.
or tape.
Yeah.
And,
But
yeah,
let me rephrase the question. You know, your band El Rayo X, you made a record, you gauged which songs were popular. There was data, which songs got radio play. You wound up on tours that the record company did subsidize in some respects. The point is that there was longevity. And
yes, there was.
So what is there today for young musicians, aside from, hey, just to let you know, we're playing our asses off and there's some CDs in the back?
Yeah, that's kind of it. Unless they have somebody who's interested in them and
like a sugar daddy or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do you see, in your mind's eye, I mean, you're still creating and doing stuff, but what does the near future hold for authentic music? And, I mean, yeah, just riff on that, because this is something that we're toying around with. And, you know, a lot of the masters of authentic music are still, thankfully, here. And yet the younger peeps are basically, their satchels are just really weighed down, where to the point where they could just flip over, the gravity will take them backward.
Yeah, I know.
So I mean, just talk. I mean, words of wisdom from Lindley here about the future of music.
Well, if you separate it, what you're doing, the music that you're making, from making it, that's almost a necessity. You have to concentrate more on what you're doing and become totally immersed in making the music and playing and making it work the way you want it to. And then you develop a following, and then the following, you know, you have live gigs, and unfortunately some of those live gigs are recorded, so material becomes old before its time, because people have gone on YouTube and listened to these guys.
That's what I'm saying. They don't support the musicians.
No,
with their pop. I mean,
you're right.
You know.
Yeah. It's almost a. Sometimes people think by recording somebody's set and then putting it on YouTube, they're promoting them. Well, in a way, yeah. In a way, they are doing that, but what they're doing is the exposure is too fast. You know, it takes some people, you know, a year to write a song, or months to write a song, and have it be really right, and and they go out and they play it that night, and it's on YouTube, and it's like, you know, it gets old in a month, or it gets, you know, a million hits or whatever it is, and then and they make the money, you know, because they get a sponsor, you know, to advertise on their site.
Mm-hmm.
They do this, so it becomes the fans.
Yeah, actually, somebody else is making profit off the art, and it's not even the artist.
Oh yeah, and that's an aspect of it that just pisses me off to no end. So you get that kind of thing going, and one of the differences is that one way to look at it is that some of the fans, it's a different breed of fan. They become predators. You know, it's like they have an insatiable appetite for stuff, and they become a predator. Sometimes they don't know it, and sometimes they don't give a shit. They just want to get all and everything, and you know.
Well, I mean, it's probably a little bit of both. They know.
Oh, of course,
you know,
yeah, and different degrees of it, and then some people, they get guilty, feeling guilty about it, and especially when they find out, you know, oh, these guys don't like to be recorded, so they do it anyway. Which is and I've gone back and forth in emails and stuff with people like that, and you know, one guy really got upset because I said, Oh. I got wound up, boy. This guy just really pissed me off. And I said, yeah, Jerry Garcia. You know why he died? He got taped to death. You know, all those guys out there with all the recording equipment, all that stuff. Yeah, Jerry got taped to death. He wasn't all that sure about how good that process was. It was an institution, you know, pretty soon.
Well, Jerry was a taper too.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically said, "What's the use of?" First of all, I've done a couple interviews with Dan Healy, their sound guy, and he said it's utter bullshit. Some of the guys in the band bought into the idea that if the cats are going to tape your shows, you're not going to make any money on the records. He said that's utter bullshit. And Jerry said, "What's the use once the note leaves my guitar? I'd rather share it. What's the use of? I want to share it with people, you know, and let it, you know." And so go ahead. Go ahead though. He didn't die. Yeah. He wasn't taped to death. Okay, but
that's how I went off on this guy, you know, and that really got to him. I was so glad. Those guys really got into it. You know, it was an institution, and it spread to other bands, and it was a Bay Area thing, and you know, file sharing and stuff like that, and it became an empire. The Grateful Dead thing is totally unique. Never seen anything like that ever. But I just wanted to get to this.
Well, and they eventually had to create the tapers section because it was getting too out of control, and there was that idea that there were people in the band. I don't know who they were, but they basically were totally convinced that they were losing profits because people were taping their shows and not paying. And Lindley, we just cooked through another hour here, and this was more of like a philosophical discussion, but maybe we could do a Halloween edition next week. I'm not sure if you're.
Are you getting? How many more questions do you have?
Well, on this session we're done. I have no.
Okay.
You know, but if you want to, we can do set 4. We can let it breathe for a little while. Whatever you want to do. I'm just having a ball talking to you.
Yeah, because it's bottomless pit, you know.
Well, and that's well, believe me, that's why I continue to keep doing what I'm doing. So, yeah, I mean, let's shoot for next.
Yeah. If it helps out and if it's important and it'll, you know, clear things up or open doors and windows.
Well, you got to realize when this.
Important.
Yeah, well, and then here's the thing. I mean, it is all of those things, and it's also when you put something in context in the written word, other people who are equally as bogged down or confused can actually see the light. And that's why I'm doing, using new media. So, I'm being creative in my own way. I'm just trying to figure out if rock and roll is dead or not, truthfully. And that's.
No, it's not.
So it's not. So anyway.
Never dies.
Never dies. All right. So let's just plan on next time, next week. All right.
That'd be good.
Love you, man. Take it easy.
Love you too.
Later on.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye. Part 3 in the books with David Lindley, and we'll be back with John Perry Barlow on the other side of the break right after this.